In the manufacturing team, we're used to going out, seeing manufacturing businesses day in, day out, looking at the coal face of businesses adopting robotics technologies. On the other hand, Marie, you're in the robotics team within KTN. Can you tell us a bit from your perspective about the latest advances in the technology and state of the art and some of the challenges in adopting robotics technologies?
Of course, yeah. So I'll start by setting the scene by telling you a bit about the manufacturers who are successfully using robotics. And then the kind of sticking points where people get stuck, where the challenges are, and how the innovations that are coming through the pipeline look as though they'll address those. So I think the first thing to note is that the UK is behind other countries in adopting robotics, and it's still the automotive industry that use them the most, so more than half of the robots in the UK are used in the automotive industry. And of course, you all know this, that 99% of manufacturing businesses in the UK are SMEs, so they're smaller businesses with less capital investment to make in these technologies, and less sort of manpower, less expertise in robotics. They don't have their own robotics experts per se, so they'll be relying on the expertise of other organisations to lead them through these robotics adoption projects. So the businesses that we have seen adopting them well are for processes that are repeatable and straightforward. So for example, loading blanks into machine tools, that works really well. We've seen a manufacturer using this to great effect. They've retrained their staff to set the machinery up during the day and then leave it running overnight. So that's fantastic. We've seen other small manufacturing businesses using robots to move clay bottles between kilns. We've seen and that's highly complex. Moving an unbaked clay bottle is really quite complex, so a lot of advanced engineering work has gone into programming those robots. But even organisations like that who are experienced in adopting robotics and being able to manufacture with robots quite complex processes, they do often come across a process that is hard to automate. So these are the organisations that I've been speaking to, trying to help them to find the innovative technologies that will overcome those challenges. So this is largely around handling unpredictable materials, so fabrics, meshes, paper. These are difficult for robots to handle at the moment. Also, switching between different products. So unlike a car manufacturer who will, be doing producing vast amounts of cars in a day, and the operation required by the robot will be the same every time, with smaller businesses, they might switch their products day to day. So the robot isn't necessarily going to be doing the same operation over and over again. So these businesses want the robots to be able to adapt to the new operation with minimal intervention. So that again is a challenge. How do you change over to the new operation without having to reprogram the robot, without needing complex, time-consuming work to reset the robot for this new task? So that's another one. In terms of overcoming these challenges, we're seeing a lot of development on sensors, on manipulators, on the intelligence that robots use, the vision, the navigation. We've seen over the last few years cobots reaching the manufacturing shop floor. So manufacturers have increasing confidence in robots working alongside humans and assisting humans. So robots in that sense can be taught by guiding them. They don't necessarily need to be programmed anymore. So that's a great advancement that's made it simpler and more accessible for manufacturers to use them and to reprogram them. I think in terms of the research and innovation that's going on now for related to robotics, and not just for manufacturing but for other applications like space, other hazardous environments that Innovate UK has invested in research for. We can see work going into natural language processing, more of the sort of machine vision and machine learning. So my expectation is that in the future you could even just give a robot verbal instruction on what it needed to do next, that you could teach it by showing it. And that would be the next kind of step forward that would make it easier for manufacturers to adopt, as well as obviously costs continuing to decrease.
In the manufacturing team, we've seen some manufacturers who've assumed that robotics and automation is perhaps some kind of silver bullet. Perhaps have even invested in robotics technology, but then not seen the benefits that they expected. So is this something that you've seen, and what advice would you give to manufacturers who are contemplating the use of robotics and automation technologies?
I think my advice would be to start by focusing on the problem that you're having or the goal that you have, and accepting that robotics might not necessarily be the answer. I think when you do go down the route of adopting robotics, have a look at the process either side of the robot. You might find that there are better gains to be had by automating a different process. So there may be an operation that's very difficult for a robot to do that a human could do, that you could free up humans to perform by having robots delivering materials around the plant. That's one approach that I would look at, and also really analyse the problem. So it might be more complex than you realise. It might need sort of data collection, data interpretation, mathematical analysis to really understand the factors involved. And lastly, you might need to rethink how your product is made. You might need to redesign your product to enable automated manufacture, whether that's by robots or other types of machines. So certainly robotics are fantastic. They can do wonderful things now. They won't always be the answer. So it's worth doing that thinking and that analysis up front before you invest. And you find yourself with a robot that you set up to perform a particular task, and then perhaps 6 months later you're not doing that anymore, and you're not sure how to use the robot for something else. The number of UK-based companies that are developing robotic solutions is growing. So we've got at least 2 manufacturers of low-cost robotic arms who are really keen to engage with manufacturers and understand what their challenges are and where their products can be applied. So this is our opportunity to really not just help manufacturers but help those growing robotics businesses as well. So events like that one, which was fantastic, where we brought them together with the manufacturers, that's the sort of thing that we'd really like to see more engagement with going forward, so that we can help both communities to grow and to develop.